To the podcast. Today we're looking at what the heck is grace, and we're looking at it with my friend Jeremy, which is really cool. Now, what I love about hanging out with Jeremy is that he's a guy who he hasn't had it easy. He's had a few tough things go down the last 5 or 10 years, and he's also a guy who, when things are tough, we can run away from God when things are tough, and we can blame him and think that we're failures, or we can run to God and be like, "Well, God's on my side." And Jeremy, you certainly, like the vast majority of the time, you're someone who runs to God. And I think that is a real example for people like me. Jeremy, what is it that makes it so that you do want to run to God when things are going wrong? Like, why do you run to him where other people might run from him?
Well, he knows all of my thoughts and he knows what's best for my heart and the way I think. And rather than run away from your problems, it's better to embrace them. And it if when I, it can be um a good fix for anything: sadness, depression, anger, any and all emotions. God can just take it away, do his magic, and accept us for who we are, no matter what we've done wrong or how we feel. We can't escape his love, even if we don't want to, notice that it's there.
Hmm. And what do you mean by his acceptance? Because a lot of people hear that and they're like, well, what does that mean? They've never really felt like God accepts them because they're so busy trying to prove to God that they're enough. What do you mean when you say that we can experience God's acceptance of us?
We we know the fact that Jesus did die for us, and that kind of sacrifice we can't repay, but it is paid in full because of him. And to be accepted and chosen by God to follow in his way and listen to his word, and he creates a very livable, happy life for all of us. And it's up to us to keep living the life that we want to with his name on our lips. And it, it feels amazing knowing that, there's someone that can take the fall for us.
Hmm. What do you mean by it feels amazing? Tell us about that. Because again, not everyone listening really can relate to that. They're like, oh, what do you mean?
Embracing God's a very good thing to do. And to, to basically be a good Christian or to accept God or go to God. It feels like you're not carrying your own burden. You're not carrying all this weight on your shoulders because Jesus he's carrying all of it and he's embracing us as his own.
That makes sense. I hear you. Okay. So if we look back, like page 3 of the Bible, you've got Adam and Eve choose to do the exact opposite of what God said to do, and then they hide from God. They literally hide from him. And he's even calling out to them, "Hey guys, where are you?" Like he doesn't know, but anyway, he's like, "Guys, where are you?" And then and they say, "Look, we hid from you because like we're ashamed because we're not wearing clothes." Like awkward, and they're running from him because things are not as they should be and they know it. What are some reasons that you see people running from God instead of running to him? Why do we have a tendency as people to pull back from God instead of going the very person who's on our side?
Well, I think it's more about the shame of our own sins that gets the best of us. And we just have to know that God doesn't really care about all that. He's more lovable towards, forgiving us. It's okay. Instead of, a father going to his son, you have done wrong. Where are you? With a stern voice, it's more, my son, where are you? I want to, it's a different context on how he views us as sin.
I hear you. I hear you. That makes sense. And there's a lot of people who are hearing what you're saying and they have no idea what you're talking about. They're like, hold on, isn't God this cranky, upset dad who's like anti me? It's like, well, what would you say to someone who actually views God as a harsh father, who's not on their side, who's looking to find fault with them? Like, how does that match up with how you view the world?
Well, I like to think that my father tests me all the time. Tests my faith and you know what would actually happen if I reached rock bottom, and would I still look to him for help? And most people they don't. They just it's all it's all make believe. It's not really the only person that's gonna get myself out of this little rut is me, and that's where people forget that God is there, and we just can't see him. And seeing through, seeing at the world with faith in your eyes or faith in your heart is the best way to see God. Because you know he's there, and you don't have to be afraid that he's just going to leave you high and dry, because he won't.
I hear you. It's like, according to the Bible, God has made a commitment to you, to me, to whoever wants to take him up on his offer, that he won't leave you, he won't forsake you, that you won't be abandoned. Jesus said, none of those the Father has given me can be snatched out of my hand. And it says in 1 John, how great is the love that the Father has lavished on us, that we should be called children of God, and that's what we are. The idea that God lavishes love on us, just throws it at us more than we can handle. Just, here, I love you that much. People find that hard to believe because their own dad, maybe their own dad was harsh and hypercritical, or maybe their school teachers were, or maybe they grew up believing that they have to be good enough for God. A couple of times this week, people have told me that, basically the idea that if they can be good enough, then God will accept them. And if they're not good enough, God doesn't accept them. Like, what would you say to someone who says that?
Probably look at the whole. Don't look at what God hasn't done for you. Look at what God has done for you. And then you can make your own comparison on where he is to look and how you can see him better. Because you know he's there. You just when your mind's in the wrong spot, it blurs your vision. You're thinking bad. You've done this or you've done that. When all you just got to remember, that's right. I'm loved. God is there for me. He's forgives me of everything that I've done. In His eyes, I'm the Son of God.
Yeah.
The place that I got to be.
That makes sense. Okay. And then that ties into something you said last week when I was chatting with you. You said, if you're going to be judged by someone, you want to be judged by God. Like, what did you mean by that?
Well, whose opinion would you rather? Would you rather the opinion of you from, say, Prime Minister of Australia? He meets people all over the place, and he doesn't know you fully. But the Lord, He knows you in and out. What better teacher or father to judge you than Him?
That makes sense. Okay. And then I guess another question I'd love to ask you is, a lot of people view adversity as God punishing them, which is not what the word says. If you lived in the Old Testament, you could view it that way quite feasibly. But in the New Testament, adversity is not equal to punishment. You talked before about how God equips you and God tests us and he's growing our faith and stuff like that. What are we supposed to do with ourselves at those times where we go, this adversity must mean I did something wrong. I'm being punished. That's why I've got this problem, or that's why this went wrong, or that's why, I don't know, some disaster happened to us. Like, what's your take on adversity and God, and how does that happen? Why do so-called good things happen? Sorry, why do so-called bad things happen to so-called good people? Is it because they did something naughty? Like, what's your take on that?
People blame themselves for different reasons, and you mustn't blame yourself for the wrong reasons. It makes you think in a different way, and adversity, overcome adversity by not saying anything bad by yourself, say anything bad of yourself. God give you all the tools that you need in His Word, and if you're not digesting it all the time, those tools are useless to you because you don't know how to fix things or how to realize things, how to pick up on different signs, and through the communities that people are shunned by, it's important to involve yourself with the right people in the right backgrounds. If you're in amongst people who belittle you and sort of put you down a little bit, of course you're gonna always feel like that, or you'll always, think you're bad or think you've done wrong. But if you involve yourself with the good Lord's word and doing things like this, it paints a whole different picture. That's nothing is your fault.
That makes sense. So there's a couple of things in what you're saying. One of the things in what you're saying is around surrounding yourself with people who are going to lift you up. And I guess as part of that, we want to surround ourselves with people who are going to remind us of what is true. So what is true, Jeremy, is you're a champion. You're a champion son of the king. Like you are a guy who has a very bright future and a lot to offer people, and you're a massive help to people. And if you and I hung out a lot, you'd end up feeling like a champion because that's how I view you. However, if you hang out with people who are all about themselves and somehow gain social status by putting you down or whatever, and who are making fun of you, it's only a matter of time till you start to view yourself as a failure and a loser, etc., etc. So, I guess, what's your what do you do to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with people who are going to lift you up? Because it's one thing to be like, yeah, God loves me, but if everyone else thinks I'm a loser, I'm still going to think I'm a loser, right? Like, what have you done to have people in your life in the last couple of years who can build you up?
Well, I first started working for some very godly people, and from there, it sort of grew exponentially with involving me in their day-to-day life and going to their church and meeting their Christian people and inviting me into their home and showing me all the kindness and respect and love that I hadn't been given in my youth. And it doesn't take very much to be taught or any of that. It just takes willpower and wanting and drive to know who the Lord is, know what He can do, and how He feels about us as people of His. And to be without God, you're choosing to do life hard. But with God, it's a piece of cake. And it's easy. It's like, we're the lamb and He's the shepherd. He looks after us anywhere we go. And there's lots of predators out there, foxes, dingoes, whatever. And if it wasn't for Him, we'd probably be eaten. That makes sense.
That does make sense. And it's interesting you're saying life's a piece of cake sometimes. By the way, I wish my life was a piece of cake. But I hear what you're saying. You're saying life is a lot easier when you're walking with God than when you're walking alone. And a lot of times I feel like we find ourselves in adversity and we find ourselves in hard things, and then we can blame God or we can decide that's God punishing us or something like that. It's like God is growing us. God is like a dad who wants to lead us and grow us and guide us. I've got a son who's just starting his teenage years. I don't just let him sit on the computer all day and play games. That's not how life works. Okay. I cause him to do things he doesn't really want to do, like sort out the dishwasher, get the washing in, be a man, you know. It's like I'm equipping him because he's got a whole life ahead of him to live. I think a lot of adversity we face, some of it is God equipping us, some of it is just life is hard and unjust things do happen on this planet. And what would you say to the person who is a follower of Jesus, who believes in Jesus, but thinks that they must have done something wrong because life is hard? What would you say to someone who's thinking like that, Jeremy?
Well, I'd probably tell them to be collectively engaged with wanting to learn about God. And it doesn't take a PhD to learn about him. It's more of a free choice. And whether you think you're going to go to heaven or not, or whether you think God's real or not, it's better to love God, love yourself, than to think badly of yourself and not know who God is and how important God is to different people, a lot of people's lives, whether they've made them good, bad, happy, whatever. But God is all things, and it's impossible to not acknowledge that because He's so powerful. I mean, when He comes back, we don't know if He's going to come back or not. But I have read that to believe in Him, to know that He's going to come back, it would be like looking directly at the sun. It's just too powerful, and all the things that you think are dear to you, whether it be money, your car, it's not going to matter when you're gone or when you're coming to the last minutes of when you're going to come back.
I hear what you're saying, and you're right in that you and I don't know. Are we going to die, or is Jesus going to come back first? Because like either way, we're going to be facing the creator of the universe, yet who is on our side, right? And all through like since Paul wrote half the New Testament, all the way through the New Testament, as Jesus said he's coming back. And people like when the New Testament was first written, people were like, oh, well, that must be in my lifetime. Maybe it'll be in my kid's lifetime. Well, it's been a lot of generations since then, but it's just as likely to happen tomorrow as it was to happen 1,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago. So yeah, we don't know. It's like, are you and I going to die and face God, or are we going to be bam in an instant? Jesus returns. Wow. And then what you're saying about God is overpowering. He's the creator of the universe. Like that's an extreme level of overpowering, right? And we can face him as our judge who's not on our side if we want to be accountable for our own sins, or we can face him as our judge who is on our side and is helpful to us and who's already paid the price to set us free by what Jesus did. And I mean, life's a lot easier when you're walking with God. Life's a lot easier when you die, if you die with God as the one who's forgiven you, you know. I love the things that you're describing. It's like, Jeremy, if you like, you've given a lot of advice today. You've given advice like literally trust God, walk with him, surround yourself with the right people who are going to encourage you, not tear you down. Like, if you had one other piece of advice for people today, what would it be?
When it comes to God, all you have to remember is He says in one of His chapters, "Come to me, all that are who are weary, and I will give you rest." And we all need rest from time to time. And it's important to remember that it's like you're in space and you can't breathe because there's no oxygen up there. But when you put your heart set on God, you have an endless supply of oxygen. You can breathe and know that you're important to Him.
Yeah, got it. That's I love it. Like that verse where Jesus said, "Come to me, you who are weary and heavily burdened, and I'll give you rest. Take my yoke on you, because it's light and it's easy." Which is what you were saying before. Piece of cake. Like it's light and it's easy. Like all of us crave that sense of, I wish life wasn't so hard. I wish it wasn't so exhausting. And to know that there's someone who wants us to do well, it frees us up from that self-doubt, that constant negativity. It doesn't mean we stop doing things that we shouldn't do. It doesn't mean that we don't feel disappointed in ourselves or ashamed or that we failed. It doesn't mean any of that stuff disappears, but it means that the one to whom we're accountable views us as perfect. And I find that so encouraging. And that verse that you quoted there, it's like, I find that so encouraging. So it's really easy for people to view God as harsh or not on their side or whatever. But it's like, when you actually read the Bible, it's a profoundly encouraging thing. You know, when you understand that God's for you, that's very encouraging. I'll tell you what, you have been Captain Encouragement, Jeremy. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. I really appreciate your thoughts and your insight.
Thank you for having me, Marco.
No worries. Well,
Been
you and I have known each other for about 10 years or something, and I think you're an inspiration. Thanks a heap.